Welcome to our web seminar today. It is on the Drawing Data Manager. This is something that I may have talked to you about. I may have shown you at one point or the other, but it's a very useful tool that I hope you'll all learn to use, and it is getting even more useful right now. I am using the beta version, actually the alpha version of TPC Desktop 2020. It has some improvements in this area, and I will try and point them out to you. There are some things that are not quite where we want them, so you may see some differences, but there are some changes that are very helpful to you coming in the 2020 release. But a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you is in the earlier releases as well. Most of what I'm going to show you is in the earlier releases. I'll try and point out what's new in the 2020 release, so just so you'll know about it. So to get started, the very first thing I would like to go into here is, where is the Drawing Data Manager? How do I get to it? Because some people seem to have trouble figuring out where this stuff is. First of all, keyword manager, Drawing Data Manager. You can access all of your managers from this section of the navigation toolbar. These are your 7 managers. Well, Personal does not have all 7, but anybody Premium or Pro, you should have all 7 managers available to you right here. Personal Edition, you don't have a couple of them, but all of your managers are right here. So Drawing Data, right here is the Drawing Data Manager button, but you can also always access your managers from the Manage menu. Okay, so I'm going to choose Drawing Data right here. Now, my Drawing Data Manager, I had closed specifically so that you could see this, and I have it pinned to the desktop right here on the right-hand side. It could be in one of these tabs. It could be auto-hidden like these others, but I don't want that right now. I just want it to stay here. So right here's the auto-hide button. If I click that, now it's auto-hidden. I'll pop it back up and pin it to the desktop again so that it doesn't come and go. All right, so this is our Drawing Data Manager, and I'm going to, let's just talk in general about the Drawing Data Manager for a moment. What is it and why do I care? The Drawing Data Manager gives you access to every object in a drawing, even if you can't see it. It may be hidden or something covering it up. It could be off the side of the sheet of paper. There are various reasons that you might not be able to see something that's in your drawing. Well, this gives you access to absolutely everything in your drawing, even if you cannot see it. So we're going to start at the top and talk about some of this stuff. And the first stuff we'll talk about is pretty general. The section on drawing. I just clicked on that plus sign to expand this section. So the top section about the drawing, it tells you what scale you're at, rotation, if you've got the drawing rotated on the sheet of paper, whether you're working grid, ground, true, etc. So information about your drawing in general. Second section is information about the page. All right, this is, this is your page setup information. What printer are you using? What size sheet of paper are you set up to? And this says it's in portrait, but it shouldn't be. So I'm going to double click on this, and this brings up my page setup window. Same way I could do the page setup window in the drawing by going to the Tools menu. All right. If you're not familiar, I can right-click the background of the drawing, go to Print and Page Setup. All right. Or I can go to the Tools menu, go to Print and choose Page Setup. Or in the Drawing Data Manager, I can simply double click on Page and it brings up the Page Setup window. All right, so here I can set up whatever page size I want, which in this case, 24 by 36, running landscape with 2-inch margins. I'll choose OK, and that's all set, and everything is explained over here. All right, so this is just information about the page, and you're going to see this as we go forward. Double clicking on one of these should bring up the appropriate dialog box. All right. So next, surfaces. We do have a surface in this drawing, and if I double click on the word surfaces, I don't know what has happened here. Oh, I do too. I'm sorry. I apologize. Because Traverse PC supports multiple surfaces, in order to access this surface, I double click it, and this is the surface settings for the original ground surface. Sorry, a little bit different than Page. Page does not have any sub categories. It's all on the page setup window. Whereas with surfaces, traverses, things like that, we have subgroups that you'll access individually. So by double clicking on original ground, I access the surface settings dialog box, and I can change whatever I want on this surface. So if I want my minor contours drawn in a different color, right now they're silver, let's make them lime. All right, I can just access it via, once again, the Drawing Data Manager. Now, I can also expand this. I think I canceled that dialog box, and see more information about this surface. All right, but the key thing here with surfaces anyhow is that I can access the surface settings and change them right here. In addition, just like in the Surfaces Manager, if I were to go to the Surfaces Manager, I could tag and untag the various surfaces. In this case, there's only one in this file, but I can turn it on and off in the drawing by tagging and untagging it. All right? So we're getting through the easy ones first, the general ones. Now we're going to dig a little bit deeper, and there is a lot of stuff to cover. We could take up more than just an hour to do this, but we are limited in time. So bear with me just a second. I need to make a note over here. Okay. So let's dig a little bit deeper now. Remember at the start I told you that I can access every object in my drawing, even if I can't see it. And this is one of the places that I can access them. This is probably the primary place for that. Because you're seeing now all of the layers that are in this drawing. And once again, if I double click on layers, it brings up the layers dialog box. So drawing, page would bring up the page setup window. In surfaces, I have to double click the individual surface to get to the surface dialog box. Layers, I just get into the layers dialog box. Now notice in my layers dialog box that these layers are sorted by drawing order. The top layer is first at the top of the list, and in the Drawing Data Manager it's always that way. So you notice that leaders is the top layer and contour slope is the bottom layer in both windows here. So you can see the sequence here. And that can be very useful for you. Now, let's say I wanted to change this sequence in the layers dialog, I would select a layer and then to front, to back, forward, backward, up, bottom, those kind of things here. One of the nice things in the Drawing Data Manager is that I can drag and drop. So if I don't want leaders as the very first thing, I can simply drag it and drop it in the order that I want it. Now, if I were to go back to layers, we would see that it has moved here as well. All right, so you've got some drag and drop functionality here that you don't have in other places. All right. So I use the Drawing Data Manager extensively because, well, for one reason, when I receive a file from one of you folks, I'm not as familiar with it as you are. So I don't know where various things are, and I need to find them, and the Drawing Data Manager gives me tools to do that. So I use it for that a lot, but you will use it as well. For example, let's say this is a project that you worked on years ago, and now you need to do some more work starting with this, and you've forgotten where everything is. You've forgotten what all you've got on this drawing. Well, the Drawing Data Manager lets you access this stuff. So let's see what I mean here. I'm going to go ahead and expand the TPC symbols layer. All right. So here are my point symbols. Notice that there are a few that are not tagged. All right. When they're not tagged, what it means is that they're hidden. If I go into the drawing and any object, I can right click it and hide it. Okay. I'll do that with the north arrow right now, just for fun. Okay, because it's easy to see. So I've hidden my north arrow. Now, if I turn on Show Hidden Objects, now I can see where that north arrow is, and I can tell Traverse PC that I don't want it hidden. All right? Same thing holds true for these. Now, when they're hidden, they're untagged. So if I tag these, they should show up in the drawing, but these are point symbols, so they're kind of hard to see. So we have a tool. This is new in the 2020 release, this part that I'm about to show you. And that is Zoom to Entity in Drawing View. All right, so you don't have this currently. It will be in the 2020 release. We're anticipating a beta release next week and full release in about a month. So if I choose this now, it will zoom me in to 0.6, okay? And obviously I cannot see it because it is not tagged. It is hidden. I need to either tag it or show hidden objects to find that point right here. And it's still really hard to see, but there it is right there in my drawing. Okay, so that's show hidden objects. Now, if I tag this, that is the same as show. When I right-click an object that's hidden, I can show it. All right, so untagging is the same as hide. Tagging is the same as show. So it's a very easy way to get this stuff displayed. All right, you'll see that if we go down, I'm going to collapse the point symbols layer. If we go down to the 0 layer, the north arrow is on the 0 layer. I don't want that right now. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the north arrow is on the 0 layer. And remember, I hid it earlier. Right here, block reference north arrow. Notice it's untagged. So if I tag it here, there's the north arrow. Let me just regenerate the drawing. So it's back by tagging or untagging. All right, same as hide and show. Okay, So that's how these tags work. Notice we've got some other things that are hidden on the 0 layer. Okay? So that's an easy way to find objects that are hidden. You can come into the Drawing Data Manager, expand the layer that the object should be on, and show them. All right? What else can I do here? Let's take a look at that more in depth. Let's take a look at one of these objects in particular. All right. So here's a block reference for a deciduous tree. Okay. First of all, where is this tree on the drawing? Let's right-click here and zoom to that entity. Yes. And here it is. Now, Traverse PC automatically delineated it. That's why it's yellow. All right. There's this deciduous block. So this is something else I wanted to show you here, is that we can delineate any of these objects. This is what I said I wasn't ready to show you. It's right up here is the button for it, delineate object. All right. I could also, right-click the object and delineate it as well. When I do the zoom to, it will automatically delineate it for me. All right. These can be turned off right here. Undelineate. That turns off all the delineation tools in the drawing if you weren't aware of that. But so I can identify now which one of these is which. Okay, which one is this one? Oh, it's this one down here. See the yellow there. All right. And if you weren't aware, just in case, if you have trouble seeing the colors, you can always go in and format your view so that you can, delineate objects tab, you can tell it what colors you want this highlight to be in. So, and I'm not sure which one that's pulling from. I don't think we have, wow. I'm going to have to find that out. We need to expand our delineate objects colors so that you can change it. All right. But, so anyhow, I can turn delineation on and off very easily, and I can find the individual blocks, which can be very important to you sometimes. When something's missing, I can't find this, I can't find that. Well, you can now find it by coming to the Drawing Data Manager and zoom to that entity in the drawing view. And there's that one. Okay, so what else can I do? Well, I can double-click this object once again, and it brings up the block reference. So, I want this one to be green rather than black. All right, I can do that. I also want to make it larger. Okay, so I can go ahead and say okay, and now it's a little bit larger and it's green. So I can come in and access these objects and change them. So I could go to this piece of text, vacated. And I don't know which one it is because I haven't zoomed to it, and there may be more than one vacated, or it may be this one right here. We'll find out. And I can change its font, its size, its color, whatever I wish to do here. Okay, so that's obviously not that vacated. There must be another one. So let's zoom to that. There's that one. Okay, so this is how you can use the Drawing Data Manager to really find stuff, especially in a drawing that is as dense as this is. You can see this drawing is very dense. There's a lot of stuff here that's hard to hard to identify or hard to find. Okay, now you are now seeing another advantage of the delineate tool. So right now I have clicked on the 0 layer overall. So what you're seeing highlighted now is every object on the 0 layer. So I could do this with every layer. So now every traverse symbol is highlighted on the drawing. All right, I could do traverse lines, etc., etc. So you can find out what's what very easily by simply delineating an entire layer or delineating an individual object. All right. So lots of stuff you can do here. And like I said earlier, layers it's probably pretty much my go-to area. If I'm looking for specific objects, I typically go to layers, but it does depend on what kind of object I'm looking for. All right. So that's layers. Let's take a look at traverses. The traverses section is kind of a duplicate of the traverses manager. All right. So if I go to the traverses manager, I see all my traverses here. Basically, I'm seeing the same thing here, but in my traverses manager, I can be displaying traverse groups. All right, so you see JM High School is in the buildings group down here. Let's collapse some of these groups. Need to stretch this out in order to do that. If you haven't used traverse groups, they are very useful on especially in files where I've got a lot of stuff going on. So here's all my buildings. So I've simplified my traverses manager. But here's my drawing data manager. The drawing data manager is not going to be displaying the groups. Now, this can be very important to you. Hopefully, you all realize that if I have an object that is shared between two traverses, say there's a property line between two separate lots, all right, and one of these lots is my subject property and the other lot is an adjoining property, and I'm drawing them differently. Well, that shared property line that's in both of those traverses is only going to be drawn one time. Hopefully you all know this. So Traverse PC has to have a way of determining which traverse controls that object. Well, that is determined by this sequence. All right. If I look at the traverses manager, these traverses are not in the same sequence. If I expand boundaries, cemetery prop is the first traverse, not JM High School. But if I go back to my drawing data manager, this is the actual sequence that Traverse PC is going to look at to determine on shared objects. And in addition, once again, if I need to change that sequence, I can drag and drop. Should be able to drag and drop. I'm going to have to talk to the programmers about this. Like I said, this is an alpha version, so that's something I need to talk to them about. I should be able to drag and drop them to change my sequence here in order to change the priority for which traverse will draw the shared objects. Okay, so Traverses Manager, or the Traverses section, this works just like the Traverses Manager as far as tagging and untagging. The only difference here is that I cannot, in the Drawing Data Manager, I cannot currently select multiple objects. All right, I can only select one at a time. So if I wanted to tag or untag groups of traverses, I'm better off doing it at the Traverses Manager. Now, what else can I do here? Well, I could double click a traverse, and that, just like from the Traverses Manager, it opens the traverse view. I can right click it and I could go to the traverse properties. All right. I could right click the traverse, and I can delineate that traverse in the drawing if I don't know where it is. So now I've delineated that traverse in the drawing. Now that's delineated with this blue. All right. So I can do all this stuff from the Drawing Data Manager, or I can do the same things from the Traverses Manager. But what else can I do here? Let's expand this traverse. All right, so I'm getting a little more information about this traverse itself. All right. Now, let's go back to the layers for a minute. So this is, and that's going to be hard. Let's see. I know. We're going to go back to layers here. All right. So that's the centerline Pine, Hendron, Sproul Street, or Sproul Street. I'm not from that area that this drawing came from, but so I don't know the property. If I come back here to the layers and I expand, say, TPC lines, sorry, that was an accidental right click. I can, as you've seen, I could right click one of these and in the 2020 release, zoom to it in the drawing. All right, so that's this one right here. All right, well, what if I want to go the other way? So if I'm in the drawing and say this traverse line, or this is a traverse line, this object, in the 2020 release, I can go the other direction as well. I can right click this and say, select it in the Drawing Data Manager. And here it is down here. The tangent from 6 to 1. And if I expand this, here is the traverse it's being drawn by. The centerline Pine, Hendron, and Sproul streets. Okay. So we can go both ways. We can find things in the drawing from the Drawing Data Manager. We can find things in the Drawing Data Manager from the drawing itself. So there's a lot of stuff you can do here. Once again, if I were to double click this, I'll go to the properties of that particular line and I can change the way that object is displayed. All right, so right now it's just using its traverse settings, traverse drawing settings. Let's change how it's being drawn. Okay, so now it's being drawn red and it's a solid line. Once again, I could come to this line in the Drawing Data Manager and I can reset its modified attributes just like I can do in the drawing. Remember, it's being drawn by the traverse drawing settings first, and then we've modified the individual properties of this line. But I can reset this to tell Traverse PC to draw it the way the traverse says to draw it. So now it's back to the way it was drawn. Okay? There is so much stuff you can do, so much interaction between these two. All right. So traverses, layers, boy, there's a lot of stuff here, and we will be adding a collapse all, so you don't have to scroll all this way up to do that. Okay. And that will be in the program very soon. That will be in the 2020 release. So there's layers, traverses, symbols. What symbols are used in this drawing? Now, if I have a legend on the drawing, I can figure this stuff out from the legend. But possibly some of these are not in my legend. I can find out every symbol that I've used in this drawing. And once again, I can get more information. There are 10 set monument in case. Okay. Various things I can do here to find out. Basically, I can find out what's here. How many of these points are used? 171 of them. All right, so I can get an idea of what's going on in my drawing. Now, I cannot access the individuals. If I need to access the individuals, I'm going to be doing that via the layers section. Okay, and like I showed you earlier. Once again, no, that does not delineate. Okay. Blocks. What other blocks? Not the symbols, but what other blocks are displayed in this drawing? North arrows and scale bars are in this. And this North Arrow 5 contains 52 objects. All right. Once again, if I need to access the individual objects, because blocks could be used more than once, if I need to access the individual objects, I need to do that from the layers. All right. A lot of this, most of this is available in prior versions. The things that aren't are the zooming to the object in the drawing. Wow. The identifying objects back and forth, that is not in earlier versions. That's in the 2020 release only. Okay. What I'm about to show you is in earlier versions of Traverse PC. And now we're talking about fonts here. We're just going down through these various sections. Talking about fonts. Well, here are all the fonts that are stored in this drawing. Why in the world would I use that many fonts? Okay, this is, and I'm going to be straight up honest with you here. I don't understand how precisely how fonts get used or why they get used certain ways in drawings, but this drawing does not use all these fonts, but all these fonts are stored within this drawing. So if I want to do some cleanup, I can do it. For example, you know, I don't want all these extra fonts in here. I want to just deal with the fonts that are here. So I'm just right-clicking on font, and I want to delete anything that's not used in the drawing. I don't want to store the extra fonts in here. Let's clean this up. Okay, so now we're just down to the fonts that are used in the drawing, plus there are some standard fonts that will always be in every drawing. Okay, it's the way it is, and this is the part I really don't understand. I don't know the why on this, but I'm told it has to be this way. It's about all I can tell you. All right, so what would I use this for? Well, you know, I really don't want Lucida calligraphy in my drawing. Let's see what all I've got that's Lucida calligraphy. There, okay, I've just delineated all of the Lucida calligraphy stuff that's in my drawing. Okay. And, you know, I think I want to switch those over to Arial. Yeah, I think so. Or maybe I want to switch them to Times New Roman. This stuff looks like the imprint MT shadow. Maybe I should go to Times New Roman. That would complement the imprint MT shadow. All right, so what I can do is I can right-click on Lucida Calligraphy, and I can go to Font Tools, and I can convert all of these Lucida Calligraphy to Times New Roman if I want. So I'll just pull this down. I'll type T to get me down to the T's in the list, and then find my Times New Roman. And notice this checkbox here. Do I want to override survey fonts? What we're talking about there is traverse drawing settings. Your traverse drawing settings are saying, draw this line label in Lucida Calligraphy, possibly. All right. This is asking us, do I want this to override it? So what it would do, it would change the properties of that traverse object. All right, just like we did earlier manually, this could change them in bulk. All right, I'm just going to say apply here. So now I have converted all of those Lucida Calligraphy fonts to Arial, or I'm sorry, Times New Roman. Now, if I delineate Times New Roman, I can see those same labels are now Times New Roman, which personally I think goes better with the imprint MT shadow. Okay, so this gives you a way to change things in bulk. This could be very useful sometime. If you want to change the look of a drawing, you find out that, oh, I don't like imprint MT shadow that much anymore. I prefer whatever, Papyrus or Comic Sans. You choose. Totally up to you. It gives you a way to change all of these in bulk. Makes it pretty simple. Let's see. What else could I do? All right. I have a variety of things in this drawing, right? I have added text that I've added to the drawing. I have text that's being drawn by the traverses, like line labels and those things. So I've got various kinds of text objects in the drawing. Well, these objects, this is one of the predefined fonts. Okay, if we take a look at imprint MT shadow, it is not. The predefined fonts cannot be deleted. They are Arial, Times New Roman, Courier New, and Lucida Calligraphy. Those will always be here. Here's imprint MT shadow. I can also go to Font Tools. So that was Convert to Font. I could delete the font, in which case I'm going to do a conversion as well because this font is in use. If the font were not in use, I could delete it as long as it's not one of the predefined fonts. I can delineate all of the font, which is what I've done so far. I could also delineate just the stuff that is in survey space. And I shouldn't have clicked on that because it made the menu go away. Or just the stuff that's in paper space. So I may be using a font in my narrative, say, but using the same font to label something within the survey itself. Hopefully you all know why we use the different paper space, survey space. If you don't, you need to find out, but that's a subject for a different time. All right, so I can delineate the different ones here. I can also select all those objects. So I could select all of the survey space objects that use the imprint empty shadow and act on those objects all at once. All right. I could also set font object properties. So all of these, you know, they're maybe using different colors. I could come in here and tell it that I want all of them this color. I want all of them a certain size, etc., etc. Okay, so I could set all of their font sizes identically if I chose to. All right, so this really gives me a lot of ability to work with my text objects, to standardize my text objects so that my drawing is consistent. Okay. All right, so fonts, there's a lot of tools here, and I'm pretty sure almost all of that is in the versions prior to 2020 release. Okay. I know that the cleanup is, the delete, that kind of stuff. I think most of it is in earlier versions on fonts. Okay, next section. Yes, there is a picture in this drawing. Let's zoom page on this drawing. There is a picture. You can see it down there in the lower right. Well, I have a section for pictures here. I expand it. Here is the picture. It's going to give me the path and file name of that picture. If I double click it, I can access the settings, the settings for that picture. I could change its size or all the various things I could be doing with that picture. Put it on a different layer if I choose to. If this were a if this were a background picture for the survey, overlaying my survey objects on the picture, I'd put it on the background layer, things like that. Okay, so you can access the picture, do the normal stuff with it. There's nothing new here. This has been this way for quite a while, other than the double clicking it, I think, to access the properties. I believe that I think prior I had to right click it and go to properties. Miscellaneous. Well, what's in here? It's stuff that does not fit in those other categories. Stuff like like Traverse PC's border, which you should all know it's not just a rectangle. It is an intelligent object. All right. The legend is also in the miscellaneous category. Dynamic offset in here. All right. So dynamic objects. These are objects that are attached to something that if that something moves or something changes, that object is going to change. That's a dynamic object, like the dynamic offset. Well, where is that dynamic offset in this drawing? Once again, I can delineate and find out, oh, there it is right there. And actually, I added this to the drawing earlier just so that this section would be displayed. So here's a dynamic object, this dynamic offset right here. If I delete this, that section disappears from the drawing data manager. All right, so that's why I had added that earlier, just so you could see that section. Once again, you've got all the same options that you had with other objects in the drawing. You could zoom to it and access its properties, those kinds of things. I should have shown you, let's redraw that, I apologize. I should have dynamic offset, let's go snap end to that, and let's snap perpendicular to this property line. I don't think I got the perpendicular. Let's do that one more time. So I'm going to snap end of that line. That's fine. Snap perpendicular. I try to always get way off the perpendicular to see it snap in. I wasn't as far off, so I'm not sure I missed it. This time I know I got it because I saw it snap in. So here's my dynamic offset. Now, if I refresh the Drawing Data Manager, here's my dynamic objects. And if I expand this, I can find out more information about it. Okay. Just like a lot of the other objects. And once again, if I double click it, I can go into its properties, change its color, things like that. Right now, that's being controlled by the drawing settings. Okay. All right. That's dynamic objects. Interesting category that you may not be aware of. Modified survey text. And we're going to have to wrap up here real quick. Modified survey text. This is text. If I've got a line label, say this line label, I want to change what it says, or I want to change something about it. I don't want it to say what it says. I can go into its properties and I can change what it says. All right, so I'm expressing my uncertainty about this. Maybe that's right. Okay. If I refresh here, I now have another one. Here it is right here. That is modified survey text. Now, what you need to know about modified survey text is that once I do something like that, Traverse PC says the user has taken control of this. So if I did a Kogo rotate that affected that bearing, Traverse PC is not going to come behind me and change that line label because I, the user, have said this is what this should say. All right. So there are two ways to identify these things, and where this came from. One of our users, they do this a lot for whatever reason, just the way their practice runs, they modify this stuff a lot. Well, what they ended up doing at one point, and this is, I don't think they do it as much anymore because we've added so many of the label format tools that we didn't have before. That's what it was. They were adding stuff to labels. All right. And they sent out some plats that were incorrect because they had modified these labels, but then had done some Kogo tool. So there are a couple of ways to identify these. One is right here, delineate modified survey text, but I can also do it right here in the Drawing Data Manager. So that delineate did not work. Let's try this one. There we go. So once again, I'm going to have to write that one up. Like I said, this is the alpha version of 2020. So that delineate isn't working. It should work just the same way as this one does and delineate all modified survey text. Okay, so this gives me direct access to every one of these. Once again, I could right-click this and I could reset it so that it is no longer a modified object. I told Travers PC to take control of it, make sure that bearing is correct. Okay, there's one last section that I don't have on here yet, and that is a calibration section. So new in 2019, one of the 2019s was calibrations. So I can take, say, this picture, and I can calibrate it. Let me is that in paper space? Yes, let's put this in survey space. So modify, let's put that in survey space. So it's now in survey space. I could calibrate this picture to the drawing. So if I right click this, and I'm just going to do this real quick, and it's going to be real ugly. I'm going to tell Travers PC I want to calibrate that picture using point pairs. I'm just going to say OK. And the status bar, keep an eye on your status bar. Select uncalibrated point. That's something on the picture. So I click on that, and that should match up to this point in the survey. And this should match up to this. And so now I've done all that. I'm going to hit enter, and it calibrates that picture for me. Well, if I store that calibration, which I had an option to tell it to do that, I would have a calibration section here that I could access the calibrations that are associated with this survey. All right. So sorry, I'm just run out of time here. Like I said, we could spend a lot more time, but I wanted to give you a really good overview of everything. Let me just check my notes here real quick. X references, you're going to see X references in here. Yeah, I think I've covered everything I needed to cover here. Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap up here. So thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I hope this was valuable. I hope you learned some new things, and start using your drawing data manager. It is very valuable tool, and I think you're going to agree with that once you start using it. So thank you. Everybody have a great rest of your day, evening, week, whatever, and happy, Year of the Rat, I think it is now. Okay. Thanks a lot.